Okay, the next section we're going to do here is titled New or Social Structure of Mass Society. And we've been talking about how during this Industrial Revolution, especially the second half of the Industrial Revolution, there's a really huge movement of people who moved to the cities. We also talked about how a lot of these new businesses that were coming out of this era had a new rich class of owners that we call sometimes the bourgeoisie, and that these people were starting to rival the old moneyed nobility, the landed aristocracy, the rich old nobles who had land and castles, um, as now equal in terms of being this new upper class. And really what we're seeing is that a new social structure is being born in the cities. And it's going to spread all throughout society. The cities are becoming more of a focal spot of where people live and where society is created. And you have the old nobility, but in the cities, we have the rich business owners who are starting to rival now the wealth of the old nobility. We also have a new middle class being born in the cities. I mean, historically, we had skilled laborers who were a middle class, but we're starting to now get a middle class that is more like our middle class. In the United States, our middle class is really what was really what makes us such a rich and powerful country. The fact that 60-70% of our population is considered middle class, and that those people have enough money to buy extra stuff. And that creates this kind of consumer economy that we have, where we don't only buy things that we need, but we have enough money to buy things that we want. So in the cities, we're starting to find this new middle class, but it's being broken up into an upper middle class and a lower middle class. You know, if you look at our wealth guidelines, like about how much you have to make to fall into different categories, I believe it's like for a family of four, you know, you have to make over $500,000 a year to be considered upper class, but less than $40,000-$50,000 a year as a family of four, to be considered part of lower class, or maybe 30,000 a year. And what I'm saying is that's a pretty big range, right? There's a huge difference between someone who makes $490,000 a year and someone who makes $40,000 a year. So our middle class, really what we have is an upper middle class and a lower middle class, all of whom probably have a little extra money, maybe a lot of extra money, to spend on things that they want instead of things that they need, right? But we're seeing kind of this split in the middle class. And that split was being formed in the time period that we're studying. We find, and I'm going to read off some of these people, the upper middle class, lawyers, doctors, business owners, engineers, architects, accountants, chemists. Sounds like the upper middle class today, right? And then the kind of lower middle class workers would be people like shopkeepers, you work in a retail shop, traders, salespeople, and prosperous farmers. So we are seeing the development of a wider middle class, new kind of classes, which are, again, much more like our modern society. We don't have a rich 1% of nobles and a 99% poor, or maybe a few small percentage of middle class skilled laborers who also were still part of this middle class. But instead, we're starting to see now a larger middle class with more of a spread. We have white collar workers, which people who wear like button-up shirts with white collars is why they're called white collar workers. It's kind of a weird phrase. It's kind of old school. And then blue collared workers, the button-up shirt with a blue collar. It's funny. My buddy Asa, he owns an air conditioning company, and he'll come over and he's always wearing like kind of blue or a gray shirt. And I think about, you know, like maybe my father or something, or who would wear the white collar every day and his business suit as a salesperson. And it's like, wow, it's still kind of there a little bit, that whole thing. So we have skilled laborers in the city who are middle class, right? You have a skill. You can make metal or make something, right? You can do something that requires training or skill. Same thing today, right? Electricians, plumbers, construction workers, framers, the metal workers, welders, right? These people have skilled labor. These are high paying jobs. And then now you have unskilled labor in the city, which is actually going to form part of this new low class. So the lower class, which historically had been peasants who lived on the Lord's land, um, still consisted of peasants, right? There were still peasants out there. Maybe they weren't serfs, but they had a little teeny bit of land, just enough to kind of scrape together a living. But in the cities, a new lower class is being formed of unskilled laborers. Okay, these are people who don't have a skilled position. You don't have to go to like today, if you want to get a skilled labor job, my buddy Ace has a skilled labor job, right? You find those kind of degrees at like West Valley Trade Tech, right? You'll find, oh yeah, you can get a bunch of these associate's degrees that will allow you to kind of enter a trade, right? That's the kind of thing we're talking about when we talk about skilled labor. And then there's unskilled labor jobs. These are jobs that you don't really have to have a training to do. Anyone can do these jobs. And these jobs also we're starting to see come out in the city. So, people who clean, right? Servants. Um, these people are part of a lower class of unskilled laborers. So we're really seeing a shuffling, a big change in the way society is structured, right? You still have your upper 1% super ultra rich. Maybe they're 5%. I don't know the number. But we're starting to find a growing middle class. And the lower class is still really big back then, maybe 50%, 60. But it's this middle class that really is going to change our society completely, because of the middle class's purchasing power. It allows for more companies to make stuff to sell to people. It allows for more leisure time to do stuff like go to a ball game. I mean, look, I was watching the Lakers play last night. By the way, shout out to THT. He's looking great in preseason. Kuz is looking pretty good too. But the announcer said something. They were like, yeah, you know what? Without the fans, there'd be no basketball, right? Is the fans who buy the tickets, who watch the games, which get commercials based on viewership, that allow for these guys to get paid to play this game, right? But it's the fans who allow for it. And you're seeing the beginning of this during this period. This 10-hour workday was something that was becoming more common during this period. Saturday afternoons off. So now it's not a full 5-day work week, but a 6-day with a half day on Friday, maybe. And all of these things are starting to shape society. We're seeing a change. And really, one of the biggest changes is this new middle class, the growing new middle class in the cities.